Hello everyone and welcome to this channel. In today's video, I'd like to give you some advice and some tips on how we should approach our training when we go back to the gym after a national lockdown. Alright, so the first thing I'd like to say is that from our experience, we learned so far in the last 1 or 2 years that after a long period of break, when people go back to their normal training routines, to their normal training plans that they have done just before we close the gyms, people get hurt. We saw this everywhere. We saw this in the UK, saw this in the USA, also in professional sport. That was a big issue. So athletes and general population people, they haven't trained for a very long period of time. They didn't have any access to any gym. They didn't have any training at all. And what did they do when they go back in the very first week of training? They start training in the same way they have done just before they close the gym. Bear in mind, before that, they have already been training for a couple of months, so they have been building up their fitness. So they, at the end, they were training with very high intensities, high volumes, high frequency, and so on, which means they were doing more sets, more impact, they were harder, and also they did that more often. But what happens after 5-6 months of break? You lose muscle mass, you lose strength, you lose speed, you lose power, and your body, it can't really handle the same amount of stress, the same amount of training that you have done before. All right, so that's why it's very important. The very first thing you do is that you do not go to the same training program you have done just before the gym closed, because you won't be able to handle the stress, the intensity, and you're probably going to get hurt. So you have to be very careful in your approach to training. Alright, so here is my second tip for you guys, second tip of today. So my second recommendation for you is to approach your training in the gym with 3 whole body sessions per week. The idea is that you can train each muscle group 3 times a week, and don't get so sore. Because if you do only 1 exercise per each muscle group per training session, you won't get as much muscle damage, you won't get as sore, you won't get as much aching, and you can actually live your life freely with no much discomfort, and you'll actually be okay. So the faster you can recover, the faster you can train. So compare this to the opposite. Let's say you do upper body and lower body split. If you perform a lower body split, most likely you can do 5 or 6 exercises. If you do 3-4 sets on each, that will be between 50 and 20 sets, even between 50 and actually 24. So if you do anywhere about 15-20 sets per one body part, let's say for legs, I mean that includes quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, etc. That doesn't really matter. That's going to be a lot of stress for the body in one day. So you haven't trained at all the last few weeks, the last few months. Now smash your whole body with 20 sets per only one area, and you'll be in pain for 3-4 days. I mean, the pain, the soreness can be so bad that you won't be able to train again this week the same muscle groups, okay? So let's say if you do lower body on Monday, 20 sets overall, your whole training session, you might not train until the next Monday, because you're so detrained, you have lost so much fitness and strength and muscle mass that you won't be able to really handle all the stress. So you have to build your way up to these levels of volume, to this level of sets. Otherwise, it's not really gonna work. That's why I think, in my opinion, it's more efficient, it's more easy and practical to perform whole body splits 3 times a week. So let's say if you do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you do only 1 exercise per each muscle group per one area. So basically, from Monday, you'll be already be recovered by, let's say, Wednesday, then you can train again. Okay, so you can train much more often, which is how you can progress much faster in the gym. Alright everyone, and my last tip for today is to focus mainly on technique in the first few couple of weeks. Why is that? When we perform any type of training, any type of exercise, that is a skill. A skill is learned, but a skill can be unlearned. So for example, if you don't practice a skill, you lose it. You get slower, you get more stiff, you can't move as well, and so on. The same applies to training. It's a skill to do squats, it's a skill to do bent over row, it's a skill to do an overhead press, it's a skill to do a Romanian deadlift, and so on and so on. So you have to really focus first, the first few weeks, on technique, improving your technique, being more efficient. Then you can also progress in the future into adding heavier weights and lifting more intensely. So this is going to help you in two ways. The first way, you'll be safe, you won't get hurt in the gym. And second, it's going to set you up to lift more weights in the future. If you're efficient, we can lift more. Why? Because if you're efficient, everything is all locked in, the posture is great, the body alignment is perfect, and we can produce maximum amounts of force. And then on every exercise, we can lift much more. So if you're inefficient, if your technique is poor, there's something which is called energy leaks. So you have to use much more energy to lift the same weight, right? So if you have to lift the same weight with more spent energy, you're not efficient. So you're gonna make your journey, your training sessions much more difficult, much more taxing and tiring. So those are the two main ways. Those are two main methods that focusing on technique can help you in the long term. First, be safe by not getting hurt, and second, by improving your technique, you can be more efficient and you can also lift more weights. So you have to focus on the big picture and in the long term. So what we do today, one session, is not seriously going to impact what happens in 1 year. But if you repeatedly train and focus on small steps, this is really going to affect the big picture after 1 year, after 6 months, or even more, you know? So one training session won't change much, but the repetitiveness and the consistency of these small training sessions is going to lead up to like something big. My point is that if today you make a very big session, you lift heavy, and you kill yourself out of the gym, you just kill it, you'll be sore, and this is actually gonna slow you down. This is gonna slow you down, and it's gonna set you up for injuries and so on. So that's why my point is that you have to focus lightly, start training lightly, focus on technique, and then you can always progress in the future to heavier weights. Alright, so here we go, guys. These are my 3 general recommendations for you when you return back to gym training in the following week. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I think a lot of people can benefit from this information. Please be careful in the gym, and I wish you well. In the meantime, if you have any questions, if you want me to discuss any topics, if you want to answer any questions, please, you can always leave a message or you can drop a comment, and then I can do that in the future.